All right. I think I'm good. You good?
Yep, I'm ready to rock and roll.
Okay.
Ah! Okay.
Welcome
Welcome
to
to Witchcast.
Witchcast.
Cause it's Witchcast.
I'm Emily,
I'm Kate.
and we are your hosts of the Witchcast podcast.
That's right. Where you're learning, growing, ever evolving novice witches here to explore everything under the woo-woo, esoteric, spiritual, metaphysical, occult universe.
Yes, that's right. And today we have a very special guest. He is a social worker, therapist, magic worker, author, astrologer, and overall friend of the pod. Welcome back, Durgadas Allon Duriel.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And that means, as you, our listeners, may have guessed, that it is book club week.
It's book club.
We just finished reading The Little Work by Durgadas, and we've got him here to chat all about it.
Yeah, that's right. We're so excited. We have so much to talk about. And Durgadas also has a new book that's coming out as well that we'll be speaking about as well. So dig in, get your blanket, get your wine, get your copy of The Little Work. We're going to dive in. I'm so excited.
Well, thank you all again for having me.
Anytime.
And thank you for featuring the book.
Oh, absolutely. This was really fun.
It's really funny because we talked about doing a book club series with this season specifically. And of course, this is only our second and last one of the season. We're not doing any more. But it's very hard to find time to read, personally, for me. I'm just very much a slave to my phone, and that's something I'm working on. But it's really interesting because our first book of this book club series was the
Spiral Dance, classic.
Spiral Dance.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I was like, the circle thing.
The circle thing.
Clearly, it left a mark on me. It was
the spinning movement.
The spinning, the silver web. And I had like this prediction, or I had like this theory. I was like, I think the spiral dance is so formative in so many practices and really such a tentpole of magic books from back in the day, right? Like it was written in the 70s. But I was really curious to see how your book compared for the modern practitioner. And I think it met and surpassed my expectations in terms of just mindfulness and awareness of every time I was like, I wonder if he's gonna mention this from this angle too. And you did, like, everything. It was super comprehensive. I think this is a really great book for anyone who is in the beginning stages or just starting out in their magical practice or curious about it. I think it really
and
covers.
I think also for like deepening your practice for people that are a little familiar also. It's like it's got like the first section is kind of like a textbook for beginners. And then you go into like a bunch of different exercises and sort of more like practical applications of these different ideas, and then sort of like leave people with next steps that they can take moving forward as they sort of work through the little work.
The little work.
And towards, the great work, maybe, or maybe just the little work.
Right. Right, yeah.
Up to the practitioner.
Absolutely. And I think what was very gratifying for me too is like reading it, I was like, all of this is resonating true for me. All of this further validates what I've learned over the years and what we've learned through our podcast and multiple guests from various practices. But it kind of tied a lot of it together and very clearly broke it down. Whereas like something like Hermeticism, which you are a long time, practitioner of and trained in, can be very dense.
Yeah.
For an outsider, it's very confusing. It's a lot of details, but I feel like, both that there is like also some Wiccan elements and traditional pagan elements. There's you touch on the elemental. I mean, we'll go into more detail, but I felt like it just kind of summed up a lot of the stuff that I had been kind of gathering from many different sources over the years into nice one source right here, which in a very
I also feel like I went through like 6 months of therapy in the last 3 weeks of reading this book.
That too. That is, I think, one of the best things about you. I mean, there's many great things about you, Durgadas, but something that I love is how you work your experience and knowledge as a licensed therapist and psychotherapy into magic work as well.
Thank you.
And I think they're absolutely inextricably connected. or extra
Yeah, well,
super connected.
well, and
Whatever.
one thing I would say to that is that was the training that I went through, which inspired the little work, very much had a psychotherapeutic component to it, for better or worse, right? Because it's not like my mentors in that training were trained therapists, but they were trained in the tradition. And then when I was sort of deciding what I wanted to do for my career, I realized that I could become a therapist and offer something that was similar to what I got in my training, but just in a secular setting. So, so for me, the connection between inner work and the spiritual path has been one thing, basically the whole time I've been a formal practitioner. I wouldn't say that that was true when I was like practicing witchcraft as a teenager, but that was definitely true once I like joined a hermetic order. It was very much a part of that training to work on yourself very seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it makes sense. I mean, how are you going to get anywhere if you're all bogged down in your own stuff and all tangled up in your,
Right.
Hard
And you
to
talk about
put
that
anything out
shadow
into the world.
work, and absolutely, yeah. But before we go too much into detail, we should probably back up. Maybe, Emily, this is your question, but can you maybe explain just briefly for our listeners who haven't read the book, what is the little work to you? We were talking a little bit about this before we started recording. But
okay, so the little work is first of all, the title is kind of like a tongue-in-cheek reference to the great work, which is the term for spiritual enlightenment in alchemy and in Hermeticism. And so the little work is sort of the joke is like, this is all the stuff you do to prepare yourself for the great work, but really it's a part of the great work as well, And so what the book is really about is how to lead a magical life and how to develop yourself so that your magical practice, your spiritual practice increasingly becomes part of your everyday experience, which is part of the great work. Because that's part of the aim of the great work, right, is for there to be no division between your spiritual life and your everyday life. But so I apply these concepts to a lot of different areas of life. Like there's a chapter on bringing your spiritual practice to the workplace and things of that nature. But it's really, I would say though, also another way to look at it is it's a manual for deepening in your spiritual practice. I will say though, before we dive too deep into it, that I wrote it from a ceremonial magic background. I tried to leave it open so that people could insert stuff if that's not their background. But there have been some people who are not from a ceremonial background who were like, this is too ceremonial for me. But that's not like a ton of the book, but the rituals are from that lens.
Yeah. I feel like you did a good job sort of saying like, this is my background, but for example, in Wicca, this,
right.
Or like, for example, and keeping it clear that anything that you didn't feel applied to you, you could rework.
Thank you.
That a lot of things were.
Well, I tried to do that.
What resonated?
I
got it. I saw it in there.
It felt very inclusive to me. It
Thank
felt
you.
very inclusive.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I thought it was very smartly put together, and there was nothing where I was like, how sometimes when you're reading something, you're like, well, I just disagree with that.
Right.
And you just gotta go.
Yeah, you're just like, oh.
No, that's not mine.
I feel the same. I don't think I had any moment like that. And there was no cringe moments. Like I felt like it's very, and that's, I think, the benefit of, of course it's a modern text, right? It was written.
Yeah, I guess
now.
we've been sort of engaging with and reading a lot of things that are
there's not many, I mean, like there is I think a new burst of young, we'll say young, right? Like modern witchcraft, modern occult writers that have produced a lot of books recently, but a lot of the stuff before, before times was like all from the 70s or 80s, like there was nothing really, I feel like there was a big gap. Maybe I'm wrong, but in my mind, at least in my bookshelf, there's a big gap.
And I would say along those lines, I mean, I'm definitely dipped out of reading witchcraft books for a long period of time. But I do think that Kissing the Limitless by T. Thorne Coyle is really good. I don't remember all of what was in it. I mean, I think it came out in like 2009 or something, but that is a more recent book that I remember thinking was really, really powerful.
Nice.
Kissing
Kate,
the
did you just
Limitless?
write that down, or should I write it down?
I did just write it down. Yeah.
I saw you lean forward, and I was like, "Well, I won't do it if you're going to do
Yeah,
it."
it was. Yeah, it's actually kind of. I don't want to say it's similar to the little work, but sort of. It's in the same vein of like, here's a really comprehensive training, or at least trying to be a really comprehensive training manual for taking your practice to the next level.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, because I think, manual is such a great term for this book. That was when I was, before we started recording, I was trying to think, like, how would I describe this to someone else? And I don't like, obviously, to use the word Bible, but it feels like a manual. And, and I think it even refers to itself like that in the book, too, of like, it almost also kind of, I don't know why, I can't remember the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, but for some reason, like, that also kind of came to me when I was thinking about comparison. But what were some of your inspirations, let's say? Like, what inspired you to write the book? And then were there other texts that inspired you directly in terms of format and how you approached such a huge subject?
Yeah, I mean, the real thing that inspired me was the spiritual training program that I went through in my early 20s, which was a Hermetic training program modeled after the curriculum of the AA, which is from Thelema, except it was not a one-to-one. It was sort of this fringe California thing that evolved starting in the 60s and 70s, and by the time I got it, had been around for a long time, or got to it, had been around for a long time. But that was the main inspiration, is I went through this training in my early 20s, and it very profoundly changed my life. And it took me to these depths of practice that I didn't even know existed. And when I got out of it, I would see lots of spiritual seekers in a lot of different places. I used to work on tours where I would travel and meet a lot of sort of spiritual people who would come to these tours. And I just was not finding people who had had the same level of training that I had been fortunate enough to find, right? Because I just sort of found this place and then learned all of these really valuable skills. And so, I'm a believer in the quote, to whom much is given, much is asked, right? Even though it's from, well, I'm not going to talk about the Bible, but I think it is from the Bible. But anyway, so I'm a believer in that concept. And I felt like a sort of obligation of, I need to give something like this back so that other people who maybe are not going to stumble into an order like this can benefit from this kind of a training. And so it was loosely based on the training that I went through. I mean, it wasn't, but like updated to include what I learned when I went to graduate school to become a social worker, what I learned as a holistic health practitioner, what I've learned as a yogi, what I've learned just being alive and being a spiritual seeker in the however many years from when I left that school to when I wrote it. And also like where I thought that stuff in the training could be improved, I would improve it. You know what I mean? So the end product really is not, it's like a cousin of the source material. It wasn't like, oh, let me just publish my notes or whatever from the training that I went through. But that was the main inspiration above anything else. But what I can say is that a lot of the Hermetic writings of Aleister Crowley, Dion Fortune, Israel Regardie, that's all in the same vein of what this is. This is like a modern day continuation of those practitioners, minus the sort of extremely problematic stuff that was going on in those time periods, right? Because that's, if you're going to read that material today, you have to read it with that awareness going in.
Yeah, through the lens of knowing that it is not a modern work.
Right. There's a lot of, there's some very problematic stuff. I don't know how much extremely problematic stuff is in Regardie, but I know in Crowley and Dion Fortune there is, It's a different time.
Who were you envisioning as you were writing this book? Like, who is your reader in your, or like, if you had like an ideal reader that you were dreaming of, who was this for?
It was honestly for people who identify as magic practitioners who want to take their practice to the next level, and who are willing to really invest the time in doing so, who really want to, and when I say take it to the next level, I mean really take it to the next level. right? I mean, it's supposed to be for any next level, but it's like if you really want to go somewhere different from the beaten path and you don't know how to do it, here are some techniques that might help you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting and great in that, there are individual exercises where you could do one of them and probably discover something, but if
Yep.
you put it all together, it
Yes.
would be like a commitment to a completely different life in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and both are
really
totally valid and useful depending on where someone is in their practice or what they want, you know?
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And I also really loved the mindfulness. I guess like to boil it down, but just it put things that I had been doing kind of shallowly into perspective of like, oh yes, but I've been doing this stuff, but have I been really thinking about the great, like you mentioned, that great work aspect of it, right? Like laddering up to, and this is something that Emily and I think kind of always jokingly lament about, is like finding time to be witches, like finding time to practice. And oh fuck, it was a full moon and I forgot it. But that kind of going that next
Yeah.
level that you talk about throughout the book and that you just mentioned of like, even saying like practicing for according to time and place can be helpful, but it's not necessary. Like it's about something deeper, and it's about working
Right.
through the subtle energies. It's about working through the subconscious into the conscious. Like it's a higher vibrational thing. That we should strive to in every element of our life. I really appreciated that. I was like, yes, that's the reason why I do all this. It was a
Yeah.
nice like come back to values almost, I guess, in a way. Yeah.
And I will say, I also found myself like dog earing all the pages with like exercises and stuff. Like I have the book right
Totally.
here. I was gonna flip through, but just like there's all these things where I said like, oh well, that's not just so like I read it right now and then I have processed it. It's like I have to come back to this and
Yeah.
revisit it.
Yeah,
and
very
like
much-
things that I want to show Dan and.
Oh, well, okay. And also one thing that I think I alluded to this in the book. This is the other thing, right? I wrote this book in 2018. I mean, I
Right.
read it.
Wow,
I've read
yeah.
it since then when I was editing it in 2019, but I think it's been since then that I've actually read it. So in the order that I was in, the elemental grades, you do them one at a time, right? So for example, you would be in the air grade for like 9 months. You might be in the water grade for like 2 years. You know what I mean? So I sort of threw it, well, except in the original Golden Dawn when you would race through them very quickly.
Yeah, just bong, bong, bong.
Problematically so, I would say. But so, I put them all in the book, but it's, if you actually do it, really try to do all of it, it's definitely like a take your time kind of a thing. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And then that sense, I also feel, we talked a bit about this before we started recording, is like, it's also a textbook in a lot of ways. Like I felt very drawn to like wanting to highlight and dog ear things and come back to that and be like, okay, I got to read this so we can talk about it. But also I need to like, it's meaty. You have to it's not hard to read at all. I think it's very clear, but there's just a lot and you should take your time with it. And I think that's the beauty of that as well. Yeah.
That would be, if our listeners have not read it yet, if anyone out there didn't actually finish it yet, I would say that my big advice would be to take it in smaller pieces. I feel like reading it in the month or so since we sort of announced that we were going to do it was good, but I wish I had been able to just sort of like do it in smaller chunks in order to sort of incorporate more of the activities and stuff without having to go, okay, well, I'll come back to that because I have to keep reading because I want to talk about it.
One thing that I would also say along those lines too is that if people don't have a preference between Kindle or physical copy, I would actually read the Kindle version. And the reason why I'm saying that is because in order to have the book be the size that it is, they had to pick like a pretty small font size. And it's not like unreadable, but it is the kind of book where like it takes a long time to get through a page because the font is small. And so like I personally feel like when it takes a long time to get through a page that they can make a book harder to read. So, if you are choosing between the two, I would get the Kindle version because then the font size can be whatever you want it to be. And, because the sections are pretty small, but there's a lot of text on a page. So I think it does read on the slower side. Yeah, but it's
That makes
dense.
sense.
It's a dense. I mean, it's a dense book. It is what it's supposed to be. This is per the
Right,
earlier
yeah.
point about. Did I say this when we were recording about how they? I don't think I did, about how they marketed it, and it is what they marketed it
that was
as,
off.
but it's
off.
also something more. Yeah, I mean, it is a training manual. Training manuals are often dense. There's a lot of
Yeah.
information that I felt like I had to cover in order to really adequately explore the topic.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
felt like like section one definitely felt that way to me. Almost, I mean, although part of that is also that I think we've covered a lot of those topics on the podcast, so it's like you're kind of like, oh yeah, and trying to like piece things together and like come back to things uh and stay focused. I felt like once we got into the second section and then the elemental sections, it was a very fast read.
Okay.
Um, personally speaking, but
Yeah.
that's also just my experience.
I actually preferred having it, and I keep holding it, so I'm sorry if my mic's picking up book noises because I just
know, we're
love.
both, like,
I
flapping our
love
books
the
around over here.
tactile. I mean, I have like I love also like writing in it. I can't wait to go back to this and like write notes. I feel like I could use this as a secondary. What do you call it? Oh my god, my brain is so dead right now. The thing. Like not like a book of shadows or like you know what I mean, like it's like a secondary magical journal of like going back, taking notes, putting notes in the margins, underlining, circling things, highlighting things. I like Emily said, dog earing certain stuff. I personally really love that physical benefit, and I didn't find it hard to read. I think for me I feel like you cover such big topics really eloquently.
Thank you.
That sometimes I'd read something and I'd be like, yeah, okay. Wait, let me go back and like reread that one more time because I feel like that's really impactful. You know what I mean? Like to really absorb things, because I think like there's a lot of really valuable information in here, and the way that your perspective and how you word it, I think was very helpful too. Of like it crystallized a lot of stuff that I already knew, in a very clear way, I think.
Now, all that said, I want to come back to talking about our favorite parts of the book, and but I mean, as you said, you wrote it in 2018. You edited it in 2019. You also haven't been on the pod in like a couple of years. How are you?
Yeah, what's going on, Durgadas?
I'm actually good now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like many of us, most of us, probably
been a
all
rough
of us,
couple of
right?
years,
It's been
probably.
a very
Yeah.
bumpy ride. Yeah, but now I'm good.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing well now. Yeah.
I know we're actually recording this on the United States exact Pluto return, I think.
Oh, is that today?
Well,
I think it's today.
It's been there.
Well, I mean,
It's been
but
going
yeah,
on, but
It's
the
the whole like three
the degree.
piece thing.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, we're in the middle of it, that's for sure. But yeah, there's
I also
Why did I
there was,
study
like,
astrology again? Sorry. Anyway, go ahead.
No, but I mean you also talked about karma in this book quite a bit, and you mentioned though I felt like you were indirectly being like, but if they're really hurting a lot of people, maybe
Oh yeah.
findings okay.
Well, okay. Let me also just say this since you brought that up. So I learned about karma from Indian people in India. Okay? Because I know one of the big criticisms sometimes that gets brought up, and rightfully so, is that people will talk about karma and they don't really know what they're talking about. And it falls under the umbrella of cultural appropriation and like, why are you doing this? So I do talk about karma in the book. It is an educated perspective in the sense that I studied karma with Indian people in India. I mean, what it's not is a depth exploration of the topic, right? It's part of the book. It was also part of my spiritual training in America too, but it is part of the book, right? But I don't go into the depth of what I would do if I was like being like, let's explore the Hindu concept of karma in depth. But it is resonant. It is reflective of what I learned. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing along those lines is like, yeah, I mean, what my teacher always said was, the first things that you try are all of the peaceful things. And then if you don't have any other options, then you have to defend what is righteous, which is what the Bhagavad Gita is about. I mean, some people think that the Bhagavad Gita is more of a not metaphysical, is more of like a metaphorical book, but literally it is about Krishna encouraging this warrior, Arjuna, to fight in this great war because it is a righteous war. And sometimes it's a righteous war, you know? And then when that's happened, but there's a way to do that, you know, which Krishna teaches Arjuna in the book is still sort of like part of your spiritual path versus a way that isn't. And I think that's a really important point.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think you discussed, I think you handled that very well in a way that was very digestible, especially as someone who has no training or, you know, knowledge of that practice and of that history. And then you also talk about cultural appropriation within the magical community, I think, very well.
Thank you.
And the history of it versus, you know, when you first started practicing versus where we are today. And what does that mean? I personally thought you handled that subject very well.
Thank you.
And a lot of people don't talk about, I mean, yoga, the appropriation of yoga is so, you know, pervasive in our Western American culture, right? And I've recently myself started following some Indian
really
yoga.
took it and ran with it.
Yeah, right. Practitioners, and you know, and they're speaking out. I think now they're starting to get slowly more and more attention of like, hey, wait a second, yoga's not Lululemon pants and you know, green juice. Like it's an ancient practice, and you've been trained in Ayurvedic yoga, so you know, I think I don't know. I thought that was as much as this was not a text on that specific subject that you couldn't go too in depth on it. I thought you touched on it well enough that I was like, yes, okay, understood, got it.
Yeah.
Well done.
And it's something that we've talked a lot about, or in different ways on this podcast, in terms of like what is an acceptable, you know, like hex or binding, or like what different people are, you know, I mean, different people have very different perspectives on that, you know, I mean, you know, I don't think either of us really do hexing, or I certainly don't. I don't want to speak for Kate, but I know that we have had guests that do and are cool about it, you know, like,
right.
And then at the same time, it's you know, but we have kind of treated binding as a fairly neutral thing. But it was interesting to see it treated as really like even that is kind of a last resort, where it's, you know, I mean, where you should do positive first, and then it's like, and then binding is a necessary.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so just for people who are listening to sort of contextualize that a little bit, the training that I went through was very much about aspiring to the great work. And in aspiring to the great work, you want to free yourself of as many things that hold your mind to the physical world as possible. So when you cast a binding spell on someone, you have bound yourself to them, right? At least psychologically. I mean, you don't have to look at it that way, but I have never heard an argument that's made me feel like it invalidated what I'm saying right now. I know there are people who are like, I don't believe that. And I'm like, great, I'd love to hear your reasoning. And it's never sounded like it held water to me. Like when you bind someone, that is you putting them in a box, and then that box is in your psyche and it's there. And if that's what you feel like you need to do, that's what you feel like you need to do. I'm not judging or criticizing someone for that. I mean, one of the things magic is for is justice. But what I'm saying is, if you contextualize it with trying to release those kinds of boxes in your psyche, which is what you're trying to do if you're aspiring to the great work, it does not make sense to keep adding things there. It just doesn't make sense. So, but sometimes that's the best choice. You know what I mean? And I'm not, again, judging or criticizing somebody if that's what they see as their choice or that is their choice. But the little workbook is very much contextualized within the sort of greater spiritual path, which is what I was trained in. And again, I'm not saying people have to believe in that either, you know. Right. But that's the perspective that the book is coming from.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I froze the Supreme Court. They're in my freezer right now. When you were like a box in your psyche, I was like, yes, in my freezer. They're in my freezer.
I know, and we did a binding on Steve Bannon like years ago.
In 2019, the first and only spell that Emily and I did together was a binding against Trump and Bannon. Actually, I really wanted to talk to you about this. This is not relevant necessarily to the book, but curious on your thoughts, Durgadas, because I've been having these conversations, and Emily, with people lately, sensitive folk, who are in tune
Right.
with what have you. And when Emily and I first started that binding spell, I remember we were late because like the online witch community was like, we're going to bind Trump at this time and this day with the planets in this place. And it was actually it was right after my first date with my now husband. Like I was like, you have to go. I have to go do a spell. Bye. And then we were running behind, and it was like 12:04 a.m. We were supposed to have it done by 12, and I pulled up Steve Bannon's photo on my laptop, and he was like big, like full screen, and I remember it's like I got a ringing chime in my ear, and my like heart dropped in my chest, and I got like this sudden feeling of like, oh, we have to do this now. Like, we have to do this now, and it's not even about these two humans. Like, this is about something greater and bigger and darker and at play here. That they are just merely, tenants of, like they're merely just faces representative of this darker, greater force. And it seems a little doomsday-y, I feel, or alarmist to say, but I've been talking to others about, and some of my friends from my psychic dev class that I took, but like this kind of sense that there's this undercurrent of, and we see it everywhere, right? Of like hate, of evil is such a charged word. I don't necessarily want to use that, but like something of a force that is, I think a lot of people are trying to rise above and vibrate higher. And on the other side, though, I think there are a lot of people who are very much falling to baser,
right,
vibrations. And it's like a plague. It feels like there's this dark shadow that is trying so hard to take over. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Well, you mentioned earlier the Pluto return of the U.S., right?
Yeah.
And obviously that the broader issues that you're talking about aren't just happening in the United States, but I think what you've seen here over the last few years is very much a part of that. And a Pluto return is the popping of the pustule and letting all the pus drain out, right? And so here it is. Here's all the pus, right? Or here are all the skeletons tumbling out of the closet. Like, it's right on time. And you see that in the social unrest we've had the last few years. You see that in the way different parts of America have handled the pandemic. You see that in our political vitriol. You see it in the mass shootings and our gun control issues. And you see it now with the Supreme Court. Having said that, I think sometimes there's this notion that people hold that things have to end well on a human level. And I don't know if that's because that's usually what happens in the stories that we watch every single day, but that doesn't mean that that's true. You know what I mean? So I don't know that there's any real reason to believe that we're going to triumph over this rising wave. Hopefully, that would be great. But, maybe I'm just a pessimistic Jew whose people have been through so much, and it's in my DNA to be suspicious of these things. But
yeah, the Dark Ages weren't 3 years; they were ages.
Right, we do. Right, we do the best we can, and we should continue doing more. But I don't think that we know how this Pluto return is really going to end. We're in it now, and we have to stand up for what we believe in. Because, the other thing is that to the people in the evangelical community, this is a bright time. This is like, the mass shootings are not a bright time, but everything that just happened with the Supreme Court is like fireworks going off in their home. They're so happy about all of this, right? So it also depends a little bit on your perspective. But it's very in line with the Pluto stuff. Just all boiling out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, which brings me back to the little work for a second, just to say that, I'm such a water person anyway, but I really enjoyed I think the other element sections were probably more helpful in terms of what I actually need because I'm such a water person, but I really enjoyed the section on the Holy Dark. And water in general. Yeah. It really resonated. That's all, really. I know you're. That's all I have
Well,
to say
one of
about
the
that.
things that
really
I
enjoyed
would
it.
say about that, though, is that there are a couple of things that I threw in there really intentionally to make a strong point about. One was all the times I talk about spiritual bypassing, and then one was, which also somebody totally didn't get part of that. And now
Can't please
in my
everybody.
next book, I added a paragraph very specifically because of this one instance of this person not getting something, and I was like, oh, this needs to be said very clearly. But the thing I was going to say is the holy dark, right? Like the idea that darkness is holy, and also the difference between darkness and evil and wickedness is something that I think really needs to be made, because it's not the same thing. But if you treat it like the same thing, if you pathologize darkness, what happens, right? And we're living in that world because there are people in power who've done that for a really long time. The thing I wanted to say really quickly, because I do think this is a valuable point, is that so spiritual bypassing, which I define as when you avoid or deny natural elements of the human experience with spirituality, or you sort of retreat into a fantasy world with spirituality, it's not necessarily about what you believe. It's what you're doing with that belief. Like somebody had said that they thought that, I was saying that something can happen in your life that's very negative because of your karma. Well, that's the Hindu belief. That is literally the belief. A lot of what happens in your life is because of your karma, which is from previous lifetimes. That is just Hinduism, to believe that. Most Hindus believe some version of that. So spiritual bypassing would be if you then say, I shouldn't be sad about anything that happens in my life. I should force myself to only feel grateful because this is my karma and I accept it with open arms. That would be more what spiritual bypassing is. It's not spiritual bypassing to believe that karma is real and that this is how it works. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I think people don't get that when they say something like that, that is a Hindu-phobic comment, right? Or it's an anti-Hindu comment. And I don't think they mean to do that, but they are doing that. And if you mean to invalidate someone else's religious beliefs, go ahead. You have the freedom to validate or invalidate anyone else's beliefs if that's what you want to do. But know that that's what you're doing. If you say karma isn't real, you're saying Hinduism isn't real, or the elements of Hinduism that believe in that. I'm not saying you have to believe in it, but that is what you're doing. And it's not spiritual. It's not any more spiritual bypassing to believe that karma is real than it would be spiritual bypassing to believe that there's a divine being who cares for you. You can bypass with almost any spiritual belief that has a significant emotional impact on someone's life. It's what you're doing with it. Anyway, off end rant, but
The
No, I think
bypassing
that's-
is the action, or like how you deal with the situation.
right, it's are
versus
you
what you believe the
avoiding
situation is.
it's like are you avoiding your psychological reality with spirituality? Are you denying something that you really feel because you feel like you're not supposed to or whatever?
Yeah.
Now,
In that rant, you mentioned, or around that rant, that you have a paragraph about that in your new book.
I do, yes.
So,
Yes,
what's the
tell
new
us
book? What
about
are you
your
working
new
on?
book.
What's
Oh,
coming
thank you.
out?
So my new book is called Worthy as You Are, and it comes out September 8th. And really, I think of this book as being like a love letter to the inner children of the world. And that's really what it's about. It's a spiritual healing book. It's similar in some sections to the little work because, I have to present the framework of healing. And it's not like my framework of healing is dramatically different then versus now. So there are some similar sections. But this one is really just about healing. And it comes from a very simple spiritual place, connecting with the heart, connecting with divine love, and deconditioning ourselves from messages that have told us we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough, just as we are. So for me, I've experienced that a lot in my life as a queer gender nonconforming person, especially when I was a little kid. That's what it's really about. So the little work is like a training manual for deepening your spiritual practice. Worthy as You Are is a book about just healing, self-esteem, wellness. And if you want to go deeper than that. So like the little work would be book 2, right? If you're, I wrote them in the other order, but I wouldn't read them in the order I wrote them in. I would read Worthy as You Are first. And then if you're interested in magic, then you could read the little work. And if you're not, you don't have to. Yeah.
If you're not, how'd you find this podcast?
Right, exactly.
Why are you here? But also
Right.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks. Hang out, please.
Yeah, I know. Very true. Very true. Yeah.
No,
wanna
I
go-
do think a few of my friends maybe listen just to feel like they're hanging out with us sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi,
I mean,
guys.
we welcome all.
And I would say along
Yeah.
those lines, Worthy as You Are is for like a general audience. Like it's
Yeah.
more for like anybody who identifies as spiritual and feels like they want to do some healing work. You know,
I love
just
that.
yeah,
Where will it be available?
like everywhere, usual, Amazon, IndieBound,
All the
yeah,
normal places.
Barnes and Noble. Yeah, it's also through Llewellyn. So
Okay,
That's
cool.
great.
yeah.
I love how accessible the book was. I actually also was going back and forth between listening to the audiobook as well
Oh, did you like
as
the audiobook?
reading. I did. I his voice, the voice actor you have is it's very clear. Like I feel like his pacing and cadence was like very digestible.
Nice.
And it's hard sometimes because like I'm mostly a visual learner. So yeah, even though I have a podcast. So no, I enjoyed it. I enjoy both. It was helpful. I wanted to talk. I feel like we don't have time because the pathologizing thing that you said just a little bit ago is something that I personally am grappling with a lot of, and I think you talk about this in the little work as well. But like, I don't even know how to even like talk about like how to even like start to talk about this, right? Like the being able to accept both your connection to the physical realm and the things that happen to you or that you do and how they affect you emotionally, mentally, physically, and then also how to strive to approach it in your spiritual practice though as well, in a way that helps you vibrate towards that great work that you mentioned.
Yeah, well, one thing
It's hard.
well,
It's so
it
hard.
is, but one of the things that I think makes it harder is when we point to the human experience and say, no, I'm not supposed to feel angry. I'm not supposed to feel jealous. I'm not supposed to feel guilty. All of that is bad, right? Because what you see in what's called toxic positivity is that I should only feel grateful all of the time, right? And what ends up happening is that people's coping skills erode away, and then one day they get really mad about something and are like, oh my God, but this isn't me. How could this be me? And it's like, because you've suppressed your anger for 2 years and now you don't know how to deal with it anymore. You know, so what I have found is that if we just have a compassionate engagement with our emotions, they go to a very different place. And so the part of that that's not spiritual bypassing, but is also different from the status quo is, you know, you do want to acknowledge, okay, I'm being a little extra right now. You know what I mean? Or like, okay, like I'm feeding this emotion and I probably don't need to, right? There's what you organically feel, and then there's where you take it in your mind. And there's a way to honor what we feel without necessarily going all the way on the train to horrible land, you know, and it depends on the situation. But like what my work is about a lot is like, okay, you know, I'm angry about this. Well, that's valid. So why am I angry about that? And what is going on there? And let me own that and honor that and then get on with my day. You know, I find that when we honor our emotions, we can process through them much more quickly. But part of honoring our emotions also is about learning how not to throw logs on the fire that don't need to be there. You know, it's not honoring my emotions, for example, if I get caught up in some petty drama that just works me into a tizzy over and over and over again. What am I honoring when I do that? I'm not honoring myself. I'm not honoring the other person. I don't have to do that. You know what I mean? In order to, but am I mad? Yes. And I can honor that. You know, so to me, a lot of it is about self-compassion and compassion for other people. And the more we build that within ourselves, it's like purifying the water of the mind. And it just gets clearer and clearer and clearer. But you still have all the human emotions. You're not bypassing any of them, which also means that they can't jump out of the bushes and hijack you. You know, part of the reason why I wrote that section of the little work and also my new book, Worthy as You Are, is because there are people I know who are in a more new agey kind of spirituality or who have fallen more into toxic positivity, who are not great at being there for their friends or are not great at having a difficult emotion because they've become alienated from these parts of themselves. But there's another way, you know, which is to really honor all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
How would you say that also can tie into something that I've also been thinking a lot about too is like attachments, right? And I think that's something that, you know, you talk about with the idea of the great work and working towards.
Right.
And I think it's also, I think a lot about, even though I'm not at all trained in Buddhism, but a lot of like texts that I've read in the past, and I have friends who are Buddhists, and things that I think about a lot is that Buddhist mentality of you know, like existence pain is suffering, right? Like, and attachment is part of that.
Right.
And my judgment, like you said, it's not evil, the darkness, right? All that kind of stuff. It's very hard for me to let go of, I feel like I'm always arguing with myself about my attachments, right? So like, well, but loving, I don't know. I'm not explaining myself very well.
Okay. So one thing,
But you know what I mean?
Yeah. One thing I would say, and I don't know if this totally is an exact answer to what you're talking about, but is that, you know, first of all, everyone doesn't have to be on that path. You know what I mean? Like, when I was with my spiritual teacher in India, it was very much a path that was about cultivating non-attachment. She would talk about it. We would work in that direction. That's not everyone's path. So it's not like you're bad if that's not what you want to work on. You know what I mean? If you do want to work on it, though, there's a lot of stuff that you can do in terms of that. But what I was going to say along those lines, though, is that I think for me, a lot of this still ties into compassion and spiritual practice, because it's about, like, over time, organically, like, compassion helps us accept the realities of human experience more and more and more. And when we just are honest with ourselves kind of relentlessly about how things are, I think it does start to become easier to let things go, especially if we are drinking from the well of spirit that's inside on a regular basis. And I'm not saying that, like, the goal of spirituality is to, like, not miss your parent who passed away, right? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, like, if you're working on, like, non-attachment from a place of working on really spiritually connecting and thinking compassionately is an organic process. Like, you don't say, oh, I need to let go of all of these attachments. Like, you will become less attached as you focus on just, like, being understanding and connecting. It just happens. Like, over time, you kind of engage with reality in a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I want to apologize for hijacking this recording to become my personal therapy session.
No.
But yes, no, that's great. That resonates very much so. Thank you. That's helpful. That's very helpful.
Yeah, and one thing I would say is, like, a connecting thread between, like, Worthy as You Are, which is not a Hermetic training manual, and the little work, which is that, like, very much emphasize compassionate thinking in the little work, very much emphasize compassionate thinking now, very much emphasize connecting with spirit in the little work, very much emphasize connecting with spirit now. It's just the new book is much simpler. It's from a much simpler place. And I would say that that's true of my practice too. Like, you know, as we sort of grow and change, some things like that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Time. It does a lot. That's my helpful thing.
Well, and okay, I will also say too, really quickly, what I'll also say too is that
Please. No.
During the pandemic, I found myself returning to certain, like, healing resources, and I kind of discovered, wow, when shit really hits the fan, this is where I go. You know what I mean? When shit hits the fan, I don't go to Israel Regardi. Like, when shit hits the fan, I don't go to Dion Fortune. Like, I really enjoy their work, but that's not where I go. And so then it was like, okay, well, why do I always leave? Like, why do I always, like, it's like I go to this place, I get myself bandaged up, and then I go back to what I was doing before. So what would happen if I just, like, kept hanging out here? Like, even if I feel better, if I just keep hanging out in this healing material, even if I don't feel like I need it. And what happened was it just went deeper and deeper and deeper. And I was like, awesome. And then that's when I wrote the new book. Because I felt like...
I love that.
Thank you. I'm really happy with it. You know, I feel like it's the kind of thing where it's not for everyone, but no book is for everyone. You know what I mean? But
Right.
I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to do it.
I'm very excited to see it.
Yes,
You know.
same. I can't wait. We'll definitely, we'll link everything in our Instagram and on our website.
Thank you.
And people can pre-order now,
Yep,
or
yep,
is it?
You can pre-order now.
Okay, great.
For sure.
I think a little self-healing, and I love the idea of distilling. Something that I've been doing lately is really, this is such a weird analogy, but I've been really into stickers. I've been just buying myself stickers, and I was very anti-sticker as a kid, only because I was so anxious about where was I going to place the sticker. Would this be the right sticker? Is this the right position to put it in? And if I put it in the wrong place, I can't move it, and then the whole book is ruined, and I have to throw out my whole, like the anxiety, right? If you also talk about in the little work, like that's just would spiral. So I would never use stickers, and now as an adult, I feel like I'm actively working on that side of my inner child of like, no, you can put stickers wherever you want. There's always going to be more stickers, and you can get whatever stickers you please.
Right.
And it doesn't matter the impermanence of it or the permanence of it doesn't matter. So anyway, I love that idea of going back to what works for you.
Yeah, well, and right, if you love that and it resonates within you, what a simple, wonderful thing to include in your everyday life. Why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why does it have to be any more complicated than that?
I think it's a big, I don't know. I don't, I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of our entire generation, but
Go for it.
I feel like, especially going through the pandemic and everything we've been going through now, it is always helpful to have that reminder of like, it's okay. You don't have to try so hard.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we can just be.
Yeah.
And even what you just told me, like right before this part that we just talked about of like, your attachment, relationship to attachment will naturally change organically as you continue the work, was like, oh, right. Because like I think a lot of us have that mentality of like, we must do this. We grew up with parents who were able to buy homes and get good jobs right out of school. And like, we had these expectations kind of, and I'm speaking really, I think for American, I don't know if other millennials feel the same, but this pressure to have a certain sort of life. And I think we're kind of one of the first generations where we started to realize, wait, we could change that.
Right.
It's not possible, and also it could be different for us, and that is a lot of pressure. And to kind of let go of that expectation on ourselves and that like a student mentality of like, you must do this, you must do that, you must fit into this box, you must study. Even when I meditate, I'm like, make sure you breathe with your diaphragm. It's like, it doesn't fucking matter if I breathe with my diaphragm. Like, that's just the teachers in my brain being like, you must do it this way,
Well, and also,
Anyway.
right, I'm pretty sure you guys are in NYC, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're in New York City, I'm in San Francisco. It's like we're in big cities that have a lot of overachievers. And that vibe is in the air,
Yeah.
But I think that one of the great things about the generations that are coming up now is they're looking at all the toxicity of that, and enough self-care has been in the atmosphere long enough that they're like, no, this is actually really bad. And I think that like, part of the psychological revolution of the last 100+ years is that, the new generations see with new information that's come out, like what wasn't working before, and they sort of champion it more loudly. And I think one of the things that you really see a lot of now, which is great, is them being like, no, like, you see that too when you look at the body positivity movement, how Gen Z is way more body positive than everybody else, because they're just like, oh my God, this is obviously horrible. And it's like, yes, it is, but we were so indoctrinated and brainwashed, right? But that is what the book is about, is deconditioning yourself from those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved all the stuff about in the little work, and I'm excited to see what you do in the new one, but about like the social constructs that we like, the thought created realities that
Yes.
we buy into,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that we can break those down.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing is, and that's where they really are coming from the same place, in the sense that for me, the profoundest spiritual experiences that I've had mostly have been with experiencing reality apart from thought. And how that informs my writing and my approach is that it's like when you step outside of that, you see how much BS is in what's there, or at least how much optionality is in what's there. And like, yes, we only believe, like a one body is seen as more beautiful generally than another because a bunch of people agree that that's how it is. It's not organically true. It doesn't have to be that way. And one of the things that's interesting about getting older in my experience is you see the trends change. Once upon a time in the 90s, you were supposed to be this like heroin chic, super unhealthy thin, which is awful. Or like as a queer person at the time, like nobody was expecting me to have a super muscular body. Like I was just supposed to be skinny. Whereas fast forward 30 years, now you're supposed to have like a Kardashian booty and, guys hit the gym. I'm just saying it changes. You know what I mean? It changes.
Yeah,
Beards
absolutely.
were not in.
No.
Beards were not in for a really long time. And now they're super
Yeah, and
in.
then there was that time in like around 2011 where everybody was curling their mustache.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Ooh, dark times.
Exactly. Trends change.
And I do mean dark in the shadow self.
It does change. Yeah, and it also makes you realize it's all subjective. It's all
Right.
completely manufactured, and none of it is truth.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be your experience.
Yeah.
That's the
right.
thing. Other people can believe in that, but you don't have to. And it's so freeing to realize that and to actually step out of that, right? Like that's, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like a daily practice for me. It's like
Yeah, I know.
it's something I have to consciously always work. It's very, the conditioning's super strong.
Yeah.
Super strong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although that's part of the reason why I really emphasize affirmation in my work a lot. And, because this is in the little work as well as in my new book, is like making affirmations that actually work for you rather than the super over the top kind. But the reason is because in my experience, it's very hard to weed some of this stuff out without also planting something else in its place. It's much easier if you say, okay, what do I actually want to believe about this? And let me say that to myself, 10, 20, 30, 40 times a day until it becomes like second nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I want to
like
actually believe it's okay to need help, or it's okay not to be a size 4, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
work. I mean, you can't just change your mind on your own by thinking it once. It's
Right.
thought patterns are in our stuck in our brains.
Yes. And especially if they're reinforced by external influences, which of course we see with body image.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely. And I love also that thoughtfulness that you mentioned, right? Like just not parroting back what you might see online or that just is out there. And I think that's throughout the book too, of just kind of really thinking through of like, also too, even when it comes to your spell work or rituals,
Right.
why we've talked about before, tools are not necessary, but they can be helpful. They can be supportive, but like, why are you choosing them? Or like when you're even trying to manifest a certain something, the wording that you use, how specific you're using it, the time frame that you're establishing or not, all of that matters, and it feeds into your subconscious, and like, yeah, all of that I think is very helpful reminders.
Yeah.
To have.
Well,
And piggybacking on that, sorry. Well, you go. You go.
I was just
You're the guest.
gonna say that
We want to hear from you.
my Hermetic teacher was very emphatic about intention and awareness. She talked all the time about being intentional with your actions, with your words, and with your thoughts, and being aware. So you don't just sort of let thoughts run through your mind all willy-nilly. Like, you look at them I mean, the way that I was trained, which of course is how I ended up really liking cognitive behavioral therapy when I became a therapist, because it was very similar. But that's how I was trained, is like, you don't just go with whatever, you examine it, and then you decide, what do I intend for this area of my life? Yeah. But the spiritual practice, the rituals and the meditation helps build the concentration and give the energy to do that. It sort of supercharges you, so you actually can do those things as part of your everyday life.
Right.
Absolutely.
Emily, what were you
Okay, I'm going to
say?
say my thing anyway.
Yeah, what were you going to say?
Sorry, no, I just, and that kind of plays into what you're saying too, is just, I really loved in the little work, I think that I have been very neutral to blasé about the idea of tools, and bringing in the connection of like, not just like, because they're sort of associated with like water, earth, fire, but like to bring in like an intentionality and like really think about fire as related to willpower, and then that's the wand, is like, it made it feel so much more meaningful to me, because I think it's also, I just really haven't studied like ceremonial magic as much, or hermetic traditions, so it's I just didn't really have as much of a personal connection. But I think that going through those sections and really like thinking through the connection of those tools to elements of that sort of inner alchemy thing was really really cool to me, and it really brought something new to them, and to like the altar and spell work in that,
So
in the
glad
tool
to hear
sense.
that. Well, and I'll say on that note too, in the order that I was in, you earned your weapons. You didn't just get them. So you had to, once you would move into a degree where you would get a new ritual that used a new weapon, then you would get the weapon. So you had to earn it. So it really is different when you don't get a chalice until you've earned it, right? Or you don't get a wand until you've earned it. And then you're like, oh, this is so cool. Now I have a wand, right? It means something else.
Right.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I think that's I think that's a great point, because you mentioned this before we started recording too, about that word witch, and how it's kind of perceived nowadays, and what it's become over the recent years, versus and then how you kind of like to refer to yourself as a practitioner now. And I think that was a really interesting point, of that there has been this kind of capitalist commodification of witchcraft. We've definitely seen that. I think when we first started this podcast, and that was only 2019. It feels forever ago. It really wasn't.
Was
that
it
long
only
ago.
2019?
It was only 2019. We started June 2019, but we felt like we were kind of on the cusp of the wave of pop culture witchcraft, and now it feels like it's everywhere. It's in you walk into just regular department stores and there's witchy things. There's a lot of you'll see like hamsas and tarot cards and pentagrams, and it feels without very much meaning, and it becomes really, and I think there's like that and I have it too, very much, this drive to be like, ooh, let me collect all the pretty things, like I want more crystals, I want more this, I want more that, and there's eclectic stores that pop up everywhere. And so I think there's like definitely that kind of impulse to want to just buy or gather and collect, and without really thinking about the deeper meaning, the deeper intention, the deeper mindfulness and awareness of what even this practice really is and means. And it's gotten distilled and changed, and and there's it's good and bad, right? I think there's as a feminist gender empowerment movement, there's definitely some benefit, but I think that it is something that it's interesting. It's interesting to see it all, how it's changed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and something that you touch on in the book is that collective symbols sort of take on the power that a bunch of with sort of a mass enough mass of people and energy, they kind of take on, you're riding the wave of other spells and other people's magic also. And it does sort of make you go, hey, I wonder what's going on with all those pentagrams that have just been disseminated out to the world.
Well, I mean, my teacher always said that part of the power of the banishing ritual, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, is that it's not just you. You're connecting to the other people who have done that ritual too, which of course would also hold for any traditional prayer, any traditional ritual, any traditional ceremony. Yeah. And then symbols, yeah, of course, also are just fed and have their own. But now, having said that, though, that doesn't mean you have to work with traditional things. It's just one of the benefits that can come from working with traditional things. I'm also a big believer in writing your own rituals, writing your own spells. I mean, that's why, like, one of the things that I think is different about the Little Work from a lot of the first 100 pages of the Little Work, I should say, which is like the Intro to Magic section, from a lot of books that are popular now, is that I was really coming from a place of like, here is how to do this yourself, where you create your own spells. You know what I mean?
Like a DIY spell.
Right.
Or one of those like recipe without a recipe books,
Yes.
you know, but like for spells.
Yeah, it was like, if you want to write spells, here's one way that you can. It's not the only way, but it's one way. Versus the books that are out now, and I'm not shading them because there are people who don't want to write their own spells, and that's valid too. But there are a lot of books that are out now that are just spell books that don't teach you how to do anything other than the particular spells that are there. So that's one thing I would say too. Like, if you're listening to this podcast and this sounds interesting to you and you also want to learn how to write your own spells, there is a whole section about that in the book. And I feel like I go into a level of detail on that topic that a lot of people don't either, for whatever reason. You know?
Yeah, it's thorough in a very positive way.
I think also spells are sexy. It's like doing yoga for fitness, right? That's it feels like that a little bit to me. And again, no shade, because I've also done that. I mean, I think, you know, like a power yoga class, but I think there's so, like, I think for me at least, the book served, like Emily, as a bit of a therapy session and a bit of a like, well, what's your why? Like, why was I drawn to this in the first place?
Yes.
What is my goal and journey in this practice, and why is it that I do what I do? You know, spells can be really sexy. We all want more money, we all want great sex, we all want great love, we want all those things, you know, that like the promise of magic can, you know, allures us to. But like, really, and I love that you talk about the higher good, right? There's so much more to it, I think. And it doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be, that's not, you don't have to practice it that way. But I think it's worth at least pondering, if you are, you know, into magic, into spirituality, your why. Yeah. What's your why?
Yeah, and the thing is, it wasn't even on my radar before I got into yoga in my early 20s, and then eventually Hermeticism, to practice in that way. I was just sort of going with whatever witchy pagan books I had read before. And you know, it just wasn't framed like that. And you know, I don't know if I'll write another book, but if I do, it's going to be very different. And
I was going to ask if you had another one up your sleeve, if you had a third one.
I mean, like, I kind of feel like in the last 10 months I've been experiencing this like spiritual revolution in my life related to like rewilding. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but rewilding is when something is sort of wilded back into its environment. And I feel like that's been happening in my spirituality a lot in the last 10 months. And, you know, that might turn into something at some point that would be more animistic in its focus. And
I love that.
And it would be probably even simpler. I mean, I don't think it would be more simple than Worthy As You Are, because Worthy As You Are is very simple. But it would be in that vein. But what it would be about is, you know, it's funny because the Little Work, I was very much like writing for people who like to make up their own things. You know what I mean? There's one ritual in the book. It's traditional. Everything else, I'm like, oh, here are all the things you need to write your own, because I always really liked writing my own stuff. But if I write a third book, at this point, what I feel like I would do, it would probably have more rituals in it than any of the other ones, but they would be very, very simple. You know, just kind of like, say thank you to the trees in your neighborhood. Greet them. Say hello. Say thank you to your home once a day. Kiss your door. You know what I mean? Say thank you to your shower. Simple things, but that have like really, really profoundly benefited me over the last 10 months.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to that in 5 years,
in a possible,
or 2 years, or a decade,
and then alternate dimension.
or in an alternate dimension.
Ooh.
Our other universe selves will look
Yeah.
forward to that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, friends, I think we might need to move on to pulling a tarot
I
card.
know.
What do we
There's
think?
so
How do
much
we
more to
feel?
talk about, but I think
No, it's always I could always
go
just talk
go
forever.
read the little work.
Yeah,
if
thank
you
you so
haven't.
much. Yeah, thank you.
And then pre-order Durgadas's new book. Tell us
Worthy
the
as
title
You Are.
one more time.
Worthy as you are.
Worthy as you are. And then
Which,
I will,
really quickly, I'll just say, the original title of that book was The Inner Garden. And they were like, right, which is a beautiful title, I agree. But they were like, no, people are going to think this is about gardening, da-da-da-da-da. And then Worthy as You...
Wow, I so would not have gone to gardening. I would have thought sex. It's about sex.
Well, yeah, they were
I
like...
actually thought the same thing. I did think
Yeah.
about masturbation or something.
Right, so they did not think that it was going to be what people would take it as it's meant. So then Worthy as You Are came to me in meditation. I actually like it better. But
It's
Nice.
great.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
it's a great title.
It's very straight. I mean, I get exactly what I'm.
right,
what I'm
that's
gonna
the
get
thing.
from
The
it,
book
yeah.
is what it sounds like it's going to be.
Yeah.
We love that. We love a title that says what it's going to be.
Yes.
Well, so Durgadas, do you want to pull a card for us?
Sure. Okay.
And our listeners for this week?
I have the Radiant Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot deck.
Oh, lovely. Hey friend, do you have an idea for a great new podcast?
I bet you do. Well, you can bring your idea to life just like we did and start your podcast today with Libsyn.
Our podcast has been on Libsyn for over 3 years now, and we love it.
Yes, Libsyn has everything you need to plan, launch, and grow your own podcast.
Resources created by expert podcasters who will show you everything you need to know.
Like what equipment you should use, how to record great audio,
How to get your show onto Apple Podcasts and other popular platforms.
and so much more.
Plus, as a Witchcaster, when you sign up with Libsyn, you get your first month of podcast hosting for free.
What? There's never been a
What?
better time than right now for you to start podcasting.
This is your moment, baby. Visit Libsyn.com and use code FRIEND.
That's libsyn.com and use the code FRIEND, FRIEND, to get started.
And create your podcast today.
Now, back to the show.
show.
Ooh, here we go. The Chariot.
That's my card.
Da-da-da.
Nice.
Wait, is that because you're a Cancer?
I'm a Sagittarius. Yes, and 7 is also my. Oh, I think it's because of my life path number is 7. as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So the
So,
Chariot,
Durgadas,
how do you
how?
feel?
What do you? Yeah,
Victory!
what is your thoughts on?
Yay!
Victory.
You
Triumph.
think?
Well, I mean, that's what the card usually means, right? I don't. We
Okay.
didn't ask a question. We just drew
Sure,
a
it's
card.
just kind of it's honestly,
yeah, general.
I feel like it started as we needed to learn the tarot cards, and now it's
Right.
sort of evolved into like either like it's like maybe someone out there will get some sort of meaning out of this, and if not, it's a nice reminder about what the card's about, and also like if there's anything you're feeling right now from that card, feel free
Well,
to
what
share
I
it if
would
it's-
say is since we had such a doom and gloom element of one part of the conversation today, maybe that's a hopeful note for
yeah,
them.
maybe it's like the pus will wash away,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
or you'll ride your chariot through the,
Right.
the marsh of the pus.
Yes, you'll find your way to another land or oh god, who knows what's going to happen. But yeah, it was a hopeful note. It's a hopeful note. It is a very hopeful card, right? Victory,
Love that. Love a hopeful note.
courage, championing. It's a wonderful card. The Chariot is one of the most positive cards in the deck, really, in terms
That's
of
so interesting. Because I guess I never really thought of it like that. To me, I mean, I guess I do think of it positively, but I always kind of thought of it more as like a transitional card of like
okay.
journeying
movement.
and
Sure.
learning. I mean, I think that's something that Em and I both have, that why we have this podcast. And I wanted to mention this before too, is like being an eternal learner. Like I just feel like I'm so new to everything. Like
Yeah.
even though we've been studying our practice for years, we've had this podcast now. For
I know. I
years.
was
It's
going to
like,
ask how, since I was one of the first guests on this, how
You
the
were.
two of you feel now having done this for a few years.
It's definitely evolving, always evolving. I don't know. I feel like still like a teen witch at best, like I don't know that I feel like an expert at anything, but it's been really cool to been really cool to investigate different aspects of things that are called witchcraft and see how big that umbrella is.
Right.
But in some ways, seeing just how big the umbrella is has left me, in many ways, knowing less than I started with.
Right.
Right. You know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have
it's
more
like the wise
information, but I'm
fool.
less sure about what's going
Okay.
on.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I feel like I feel a little more in college. Like I feel like a little more secure in my own practice, but I'm always constantly having epiphanies of like, oh yeah, oh right, oh, and then at the same time, I personally feel at a crossroads of like feeling very powerful, but also very conflicted about it all too. Like it feels overwhelming sometimes, and also thinking like, well, grappling. And also, I think, like you talk about in your book, and as a therapist, it's like also I've been in now 12 years of therapy, and it's like all of that's, and I've actually I've been without a therapist now since March for the first time, like in 10-12 years. So that also, I think, maybe now I'm just realizing in real time right now, I'm like, actually, I think that all is culminating into like this moment that I'm feeling currently in of like, who am I? What is my practice? What does this all mean? What does the future of my life look like? How do I live in, how do I see myself living within this practice and within my life and in my wellness and all of that, like pondering the greater stuff is where I'm at currently. But also, yeah, I don't know anything. I know everything and I know nothing.
Right, yeah.
We're like sophomores.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Well, but so it's good. It's a positive journey. You know?
I think so.
I do feel like book club is also helping a little bit because it's I think it's a positive add, even though it's a challenge to add it into the rest of everything else that we do. But because like reading about like mystical and magical stuff is like a really positive add to my day. I feel like,
Yeah.
And just sort of, it's more of like reading is just such a different like tactile experience or like emotional, physical, mental experience than just sort of thinking about something or doing a spell. It's less action and more sort of reflective. But I think it's positive.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of brings me back to center, brings me back to earth a little bit more, to contextualizes it. And I also will add that I think our community that we've built from this podcast is like the biggest gift of all. Like knowing you and being able to like, I love your social media.
Oh, thank you.
Guys, if you're not following Durgadas, what are you doing? I share your story. I share your posts constantly in our stories because they are so helpful. They're so well designed. They're so succinct. And I love actually seeing also your growth as, on social, like how you've changed different formatting and design elements, like, and the other different practitioners that we have had on that have become our friends and our community and our listeners who've reached out and told us how much they like certain episodes or elements or how helpful they were. It gives me that good love and feeling of like,
awesome.
Oh, there's so many wonderful people in our community. There's such wonderful acceptance and love and openness in our community. It honestly is something I tap into a lot when I feel pretty nihilistic about everything. I'm like, oh, but there's so many of us. There's so many out there that are trying to vibrate higher. Yeah.
Now, speaking of Durgadas' Instagram, Durgadas, where can people find you on the internet?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram at Durgadas Allon Duriel, and I'm on Twitter at Durgadas A Duriel, and I'm going to be on TikTok, I think. Well, that's the plan, which is I think it's Durgadas Allon Duriel, but it's either Durgadas Allon Duriel or Durgadas A Duriel, and my YouTube is Durgadas Allon Duriel too. So my plan, which I'm working on right now, is that I'm going to have guided meditations and affirmation recordings and maybe longer sort of talks about wellness on YouTube, and then like 1-minute therapy things on TikTok.
Amazing.
TBD, because it's a lot of work, but that's the plan.
It's a lot of work.
It is so much work, but you will have 2 dedicated followers right here.
Thank you.
Right here.
I'm also obsessed with TikTok, and that would be very exciting. I would be very happy to follow you if you did go on TikTok. So we'll link to the ones that exist on our Instagram and on our website, and then once you get that one going, we'll add that to our list of witchy resources as well.
Yeah, and a reminder to pick up your copy of The Little Work or to pre-order Worthy As You Are.
Thank you.
Wherever fine books are sold.
Fabulous.
And you can find us on the internet at Witchcast Podcast on Instagram. We're witchcastpodcast.com for our website and all of our resources and such. You can email us if you want to at witchcastpodcast@gmail.com. And hey, while you're out there on the internet, why not leave a little review? Huh? Hey? Oh? 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, we appreciate it and helps others find us. And, we love it.
Yeah, we just love it.
Yeah, we just love it. And until next time,
Hex
yeah!
'Cause it's Witchcast.